The year is 1997. Your mother is sitting on the couch. You're sitting on the floor, comfortably, Nintendo 64 controller in hand. You're happy, but only for a moment. You find yourself, suddenly, in Bayelmoyor Dam, Soviet Union. I'm waiting for you, Mr. Bond.
What's going on, guys? It's LJ, Andy, here with Dad's Game Room. Today we're going to be talking about a very, very special game for the N64, Goldeneye.
Load a Rumble Pack and see how it feels when 007 meets N64.
Goldeneye, playing with my grandfather when I was growing up, probably how I learned every curse word that I use today. And I mean, he was throwing out every one in the book because, at the time, I guess he was probably 50s, 60s. I'm not going to do the actual math, but, me being 8-year-old me, definitely more apt at running around a map and just generally blowing the hell out of things. So,
yeah, I mean, I think I speak for everybody in our age group that we all had our friends over, gathered around the CRT, sat on the floor, N64 controller in hand, and just bashed each other in GoldenEye. I mean, that's a core memory, I think, for most people in our age range.
oh yeah. I mean, well, GoldenEye, like when I think of GoldenEye, I think about, one, I do think of the movie. It's important to note that this is a movie that they adapted to a video game.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Yes.
But you'll get more into that when we get into like the background and stuff. It really was one of the first opportunities for the N64 to have a 4-person multiplayer and really capitalize on that feature that the N64 brought to the market. That became a staple of childhood. You stop and think about multiplayer, and yeah, it was cool if you had 2 people, but when you actually set 4 people loose on what are really relatively tiny maps considering,
Yeah.
with an array of weapons from Bond's arsenal, like remote mines. How fun was it to set up a remote mine and then sit there and wait for somebody to come careening down the stairs in the bunker, and then you'd hit your little watch and just watch them blow to smithereens.
Yeah, I mean, this was the beginning of the first-person shooter genre for the mainstream. I mean, it was I think it was the first person on a console. You had Doom and stuff on the PC, but I mean, back in the day, I never got gaming onto a PC. That was just unheard of for me. It was having the consoles, playing GoldenEye. I mean, that's where first person shooters really began for the regular Joe Schmo.
Well, yeah, and you bring up the PC, and you bring up Doom. You can play Doom on a pregnancy test, right?
You can. Now you can play it on gut bacteria.
That's amazing. But so I was very fortunate in the realm of computers. My father was very up and up on that, and he made sure that I had a computer from an early age. I got my first PC in, I think it was 1998. It had Windows 98 on it. So I did have a bit of exposure to the gaming side of PCs. And then I would look at my console experience, and I actually think consoles kind of had the edge at that point, to be entirely honest with you, because a lot of the PC games, although they may have been superior graphically, the playability just was really limited. And that's kind of when PC games advented, was in that late 90s period where it was, really starting to come out with stuff like The Sims, the original Sims, and Sim City, and I think Sim City came out in 95. So, but that was, again, on Windows 95, so you were lucky if your computer even ran.
Yeah. So, back to the origination of GoldenEye. It came out in 1997. It was based, like we said, on the 1995 film. They wanted to release it alongside the film, but they had a bunch of setbacks, a bunch of pushes, so they had to just take it for what it was and just push it out. It was developed by Rare, which Rare at this time was just firing on all cylinders. They put out some of the best games of the time, still great games today. Donkey Kong series, Banjo-Kazooie. I mean, just absolute bangers.
So what you're saying is Rare was very rare.
It's the third best-selling N64 game. So do you want to take a guess at what the first two were?
Well, the third best-selling. I mean, that's saying something, because I don't know exactly which two were right up front, but I'm going to have to guess that they are probably in the Nintendo realm. Probably Mario games, if I had to guess.
Yeah, it was Mario 64
Okay.
and Mario Kart 64. So
All
those
right.
were the first two games that sold the best on the console. GoldenEye was third.
So that screams something to me. You know, you have a third-party developer for this Nintendo 64. Nintendo's literally in the name, and they are the front runner behind Nintendo originals. Like, that really echoes everything that we're trying to build up about this game.
Yeah, it's widely considered by everybody to be one of the greatest games ever made. Now, a big thing about revisiting this game is the controls. The controls are jarring. You have to take the time to get used to them and adjust to them. If you don't have the patience for that, you're not going to enjoy it by any stretch. But if you take 10, 15 minutes to really just accept the controls for what they are, because you only have one joystick. So that is moving and aiming. So, I mean, unless you want to hold two N64 controllers, which I've never done, but I know that is an option.
We're trying that after this, by the way.
I think we
we're
should.
going to try that.
Yeah.
I think we might need to look into that. But, yeah, you know, it's not like today's games where you have a dual joystick. One of the things I think that is important to point out with GoldenEye, though, is that this is one of the first games that actually used the concept of pulling a trigger to fire a weapon. You know, it's that trigger-based Z button that's on the back side of the controller. That's commonplace today. Like, every single game you play, anybody, they just instinctively hit the left or right shoulder on a PlayStation or an Xbox. I don't know with Switch because I don't have a Switch.
It's
I'm
kind
not
of the
special.
same thing. It's not really a trigger, but it's like a shoulder button. It's relatively the same thing. It's just not as there's not as much to play with. It's just an instant button click. But I mean,
Actually, sorry. I do know that you use trigger on the Switch, or the shoulder button on the Switch as a trigger, because my daughter plays Fortnite, or played Fortnite, incessantly, and I actually had to send her Switch back to get the shoulder button replaced. You know, those were the longest 2 months for that girl ever.
I can imagine. But back to the controls. If you can get past them, get adjusted, it plays fantastically. I loaded it back up, and I was expecting not to enjoy it. I was like, the controls are so outdated. It's going to be rough. It's just not going to be enjoyable. But I took the 10, 15 minutes, adjusted to it, and I had a blast. It's fantastic. Plays super smoothly. You rely on that auto aim because it'll auto lock as long as you're like within like a couple centimeters of the person. Like, just pull the trigger and it'll auto, like, you don't have to really like hard aim like you do in games nowadays. But it holds up. It absolutely holds up. Don't let anybody tell you that the controls are ruining it for you. Take the time, get adjusted, and you'll have an absolute blast.
Yeah, I mean, you know, manual aim's a little odd because it does transition from the moving aspect with the joystick to the actual looking around aspect with the joystick. I don't really think you're going to really need to use that unless you're playing on like Double O Agent, where it's really critical to get, these enemies taken out in as few shots as possible. The auto aim was really cool for me because, when you put into perspective where N64 comes into the Nintendo realm, being right behind the SNES, SNES didn't really have like this concept of aiming in with a joystick because it didn't have a joystick.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to auto aim, to just kind of generally point in a direction and you see the gun just kind of snap it towards whatever baddie you're trying to take out, that was a pretty important pioneering moment for development.
So another thing that makes this game one of the greatest of all time is the soundtrack.
Yeah.
The soundtrack is absolutely fantastic. The Paul's music, dude, just hit start and just have a jam session. Just
that is a jam, and there are actually YouTube videos out there with just the pause music.
I love
like it's literally just the watch and the music.
I love the memes where it's like they're saying like, "Oh, the developers of Goldeneye, like, hey, make a soundtrack or make the music for the pause menu," and it's the guy hits like the space bar and he just looks at him and it's playing the music and the guy's like, and they just look at each other and they're just vibing out. Yeah, the soundtrack, there's not a bad song in it.
Did you know that the faces of the bad guys in Goldeneye are actually pictures of the developers?
Really?
Yes.
I never knew that.
Like all the, whoever, if you played it, which you have, you noticed that they have faces, and the faces typically occur, it's like the same face every so often, whether, you're in Russia or, Monte Carlo, it doesn't matter what part of the game you're in, but they all have, this selection of faces. Those were actually Rare developers. They took their picture and put them on the bad guys because it was the easiest way to just arbitrarily have, identity for these people.
That's pretty wild. I never knew that.
Like,
but I mean, to be fair, the charming thing about the N64 is it literally looks like you printed out a picture on the computer of your face and just paper machéed it to a mannequin head, and that's what those models look like.
Yeah.
And it cracks me up every single time.
3D rendering has come a long way since this game. Like Donkey Kong mode or DK mode. They don't actually say Donkey Kong mode. They call it DK mode.
Yeah, the big heads.
But we all know it's what it's for. Easiest headshots ever in multiplayer. Like you just like pop people off and popping melons. But and then they have paintball mode.
Yes.
Paintball mode was one of my favorites.
Yeah, that you can't go wrong with the cheats in this game, and the way that they made them unlockable is how every game should have cheats integrated into them. I mean, that's another thing we don't get now. We don't get cheats anymore.
No, that's a thing of the past. I mean, in defense, how do you make a Game Genie for a disc-driven console? Like, what do you do?
They
just like put this little disc under this disc?
What were they called?
It's like a lens?
Code breakers. Remember the code breaker discs
Yes.
for PlayStation 2?
Well, they did have that. You're absolutely right.
They like auto-loaded the cheats and stuff into the memory of the console, and then you put the disc for the game in, and it, I guess, did some magic in there that...
I don't think I remember that one. The one I remember had a specialized memory card.
Maybe it did. I don't remember.
Like it loaded to a memory card.
Maybe it did load it to the memory card and then put it. I don't remember, but I do remember like putting the Codebreaker disc in first, selecting the game and everything that I wanted, and then I would put the game disc in and stuff like that. But yeah, you don't get cheats anymore, which is kind of depressing.
Well, and it was interesting. Like they had the integrated cheats, which were kind of like Easter eggs or rewards for completing the game on different levels or doing specific things. But N64 also had a Game Shark. I never had one, so I never got to explore that. But evidently with the Game Shark and with Goldeneye, you can actually visit the hidden island at the dam.
Really?
There is literally nothing there, and you are the most depressed person ever once you do it. But I mean, all that for like, put something there. Put a man in a bunny suit.
Yeah, I mean, you in games now you do get those like little like Easter egg kind of things where like you do certain things and it's like a nod to like either like the deep lore of the game or the development process or something along those lines. Like they do. That's what we've led like now is just Easter eggs and stuff.
The controller setups in GoldenEye are actually named after Bond girls.
Really?
Yep.
Where did you find all this information? You did a deep dive, didn't you?
Dude, you tell me we're talking about something, and I take what I remember about it, and, that's cool, but then I really kind of am like, what don't I know about it? And, I mean, part of my real job is research, so it's kind of like applying, what I'm good at to what I like to do. So the biggest question, I think, before we start to, like, dive into some of the other facts and really get into the multiplayer side of things, what was your favorite level?
In the story or multiplayer?
In the story.
It had to have been the one where you're in the vent and you shoot the guy in the toilet.
Really?
Yeah.
Beg your pardon? Forgot to knock.
Some reason, like, that level just is ingrained in my head. Like, just, I could move through that whole level just, like, in my mind. Just close my eyes, I can just move through it. Just,
Yeah.
I mean, shooting the guy on the toilet is iconic. And then just running through the rest of them and just finding the other guys in the toilets and shooting them and then just running out and doing all the things that you need to do. Plus, you get to throw the mines on the tanks and
Yep.
blow
Yeah.
everything up. And
I personally also have a very, very soft spot for that level. When I saw GoldenEye, I saw the movie before I played the game because, obviously 2 years, and I probably shouldn't have seen the movie at the age that I was, but that's neither here nor there. That moment when he drops out of the vent and punches that Soviet guy in the face while he's on the can is priceless. And for them to integrate that into the game, I thought was excellent. So I was talking about how, like, if you played different levels on different difficulties, you often got additional objectives. And sometimes those additional objectives could actually open up different parts of the level, like with, the faculty level or facility, I think it's called. Faculty? Faculty is like teachers.
it's facility.
It's definitely facility. So with the facility level, if you were on agent, it stopped once you got to the end of this hallway after picking up, I think, a key card and checking another room for something else. Excuse me. If you're on 00 agent, you actually get to go further into the facility and set up mines on the gas tanks like he does in the movie and then blow it up, which in the movie, spoiler alert, that is the point where 006 is shot by General Oromov. If you shoot 006 in that part, he actually mentions how ironic it is. And it's like a nod to, I was going to kill you off in the end anyway.
Huh. I haven't seen the movie in forever.
I just watched the intro while I was in the car in your driveway. The remake sucks. The remake doesn't even need to be brought up.
So it does. It does need to be brought up because it's not a bad game. It's really not. It's not a bad game. It's just not a good remake.
No.
It's not a good remake because, one, it's not even Pierce Brosnan that's playing James Bond. It's Daniel Craig.
I think, do they understand what people that are going to buy this want?
No, nobody ever does. They just want to capture a couple of dollary dues. That's what they want to do. They want to try and capitalize on this nostalgia and remake something, which I've played plenty of remakes, and there are remakes that are absolutely fantastic, aka Resident Evil 4 remake.
Yeah, that was good.
That is exactly how remakes should be.
Yep.
Reimagined, but sticks to the original, which this one did not at all. They took so many liberties to just make it a Call of Duty game.
James, they pulled back. Moving up.
Which, like I said, it's not a bad game to play. Like, it's not. But they took way too much out of what made this game great. Like, you do start off at the dam level, and you can see the tower, you see the truck, but then you get you steal the truck, and you get into you drive through the tunnels, and you get into a wreck, and then you're gunfighting. It's just like, whoa. This is not how the original game was by any means. It's not a good remake. It's a good game. Like, if you like Call of Duty games, you'll like this game. But if you don't like Call of Duty games, just don't play the remake.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about a remake for Goldeneye, I sit and I try to consider really what are the good parts about the original game and what parts about the original game might be, open to improvement. This game, the only thing that you can improve would be if you were to adapt dual joystick.
Which they did. They did that on the Xbox One version. They ported it over to Xbox One. You can play it on the Switch on the Nintendo 64 expansion. That doesn't have the dual stick, or at least I don't know how to play it on there. But on the Xbox One, it does have the dual stick, which honestly, it doesn't really make the game it makes it easier for a new crowd to play because it's just instant first-person shooter controls. But for a person that played the original to play that, it is a bit weird, and it doesn't really add to the game. I mean, the graphics look great, and it has achievements and stuff, which as a person who loves achievements, that is nice because you can, get the achievements and show it off to all the people on your friends list or post it on Instagram or what have you.
People do that?
I do. I used to more, but I don't have the time to go get a bunch of achievements now because I'm editing a podcast and getting gameplay footage for the podcast. And
I'm not trying to shame you for being proud of what you accomplish in your video games. I think that's awesome. It's just not something that I would particularly do. I feel like I would catch a lot of flack from a lot of my friends if I was like, look what I did in Destiny today. And they'd be like, bro, get up off your bed and actually go do something with your life.
I mean, they can look at how many hours you have in a game anyway. So they're gonna
they track that?
They're gonna judge you pretty hard.
Yeah.
At least you can look at the hours on PS5. I could probably look at how many hours you have on Destiny, but that's beside the point.
I really don't want to know.
Well, Andy, I'm here working on the podcast edit, and here you go. 138 hours.
It's a lot, but I wish it was a lot more on GoldenEye.
Collectively, through my childhood, I've probably put a ton of time into GoldenEye, just playing it with my friends.
Yeah, I mean, because we already talked about the cheats that you can unlock, but beyond that, you could also unlock characters for multiplayer. Like they had the Baron, and then there was Oddjob and Jaws. That's another thing that I'm very curious about. Everybody always had their go-to character for
Everybody picked
multiplayer. It was
Oddjob.
like, well, yeah, because he was so short, it was impossible to actually get a headshot on the guy. You're like
Everybody
sitting there
just played
and,
Oddjob.
and by the time you look down to actually shoot him, you've been loaded full of lead by whatever he's carrying.
Yeah.
I did not pick Oddjob.
I didn't either. I don't even remember who I picked, if I'm being honest.
I like to play as Oromov or Bond.
I mean,
I like to fancy myself as cunning because it's something I'll never be.
you're cunning to us.
Oh,
Remember, we called you George Clooney.
that's true, and to a degree, I mean, the hair definitely is like Clooney salt and pepper, but I think that's probably where the Clooney ends for me.
Yeah. So back to Goldeneye and the classic Goldeneye. Disregard the remake. Who can play it?
Well, we did this. We talked about that for Turtles in Time, and for Turtles in Time, what did we say? $4.99.
$4.99.
I think it's more like $8.99, maybe $7.99. Like I think it's rated teen, so
Nobody follows those.
yeah, I know.
Let's
but
be honest.
like the truth of the matter is, do you want to expose a 7-year-old to just running around with a pistol in his hand?
The things that you're exposed to in this game don't even touch the things that kids are exposed to on other games that are released on newer consoles. I mean,
I have a story for you immediately following this discussion about that. Remind me that. Just say kids are exposed to, and I will bring it
after
up.
the podcast or
Yeah,
off
right
camera?
Yeah.
Off camera?
Well,
Okay.
It doesn't have to be off camera. I mean, but after we finish our discussion, I don't want to interrupt that. Definitely $7.99. If you're 100, find something better to do. You don't have much time left. But before 7, it's one of those things where I feel like the controls are already a point of contention for the game. It might be really challenging for some body who's like 5 or 6 to kind of be able to have the fine motor necessary to play it and have fun. My daughter's 11. I don't know that I would let her play it, but that's because the times that I have, she has just gotten irate about it because I keep just it's like bam, bam, bam.
Yeah,
bam.
you're
every turn, every corner she turns, she's just dead.
Yeah, they definitely have to, be able to run around, partially aim, shoot. There's a lot of quick thinking, especially in multiplayer. So if you're doing like story mode back and forth, you could probably, maybe 5 or 6, you can just let them have at it and just figure it out. But
Well, yeah, because at that point you can also be like, give me the controller, let me get through the hard part. Here, go ahead, run down, blow this up.
which I have to do with my 4-year-old when she's playing Mario. I have to help her through the hard part, and then she can go back and do what she needs to do. So, yeah, 7 to 8 is when you can probably start them on this, but you can play this with literally anybody. You can
Oh, yeah.
Play it with your kids, play it with your wife, play it with your friends. Again, it's just one of those timeless classics that you can't go wrong just popping it in and playing it. Whether you play it on the Xbox One, whether you play it on the Switch, whether you play it on the N64, whatever way you can play this game, you're not going to be disappointed. Just get past those controls. If you're playing it on like the Switch or the N64, get accustomed to the controls and then just let her rip.
For sure. I think I was probably 8 when I first played it.
Probably, yeah. I think that's. Yep.
And I always played with either my grandfather, who was, he's older than dirt now, so he was older than dirt then. But I also played with my cousin, who I guess he was like 14 or 15 at the time, but he was getting really big into paintball, like real paintball. And my grandparents were like, no, you're not doing that. So being able to play paintball in this made it that much cooler.
Yeah. So the next episode that we're going to do is going to be, we're going to take it back in the progression that we've been moving. It's going to be a Sega Genesis game. And I'm saving it especially for Keith because I know he loves this game. And I know he's going to lose his mind when I tell him, because I'm not going to tell him until we're recording. So you're going to get to see his reaction to it live, and it's going to be fantastic. And it's a great game that I don't think gets talked about, because I didn't even hear about it until like a couple months ago.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big Genesis guy. I mean, I had one. I think I had Sonic and Beavis and Butthead for it, which I wish I knew where that cartridge was today, but I don't. And it's not Sonic. We're not talking about Sonic.
No.
I will say that much.
Nope. It's not a
mainstream.
Not a mainstream game. Not a super popular game in the grand scheme of the Sega Genesis. So Sega Genesis is going to be the next episode. We're Dad's Game Room. We'll see you later. By the way, I'm just going to address this to the audience. We are forever working on providing a better quality video. We're experimenting a lot. So be patient. If you see some jump cuts, if you see some weird stuff, if you see some good quality, bad quality, you see some experimentation, it's just us trying to figure out the best way we can do this. So we are just literally throwing everything at the wall and just hoping we can find something that sticks. So just please be patient with us and grow with us. Watch us evolve, watch us change, watch us hopefully provide great content for you guys to enjoy.